In the hush before midnight, a low crackle of static fills the screen, punctuated by half-heard murmurs and broken harmonics, a fractured lullaby that refuses to settle. The camera drifts, like a restless spirit, over chipped concrete floors and shattered glass, settling finally on the battered van idling under a sallow street lamp. Inside, Amira Cole's fingers tremble around the reel-to-reel recorder's knobs, her breath visible in the chill air as she whispers reminders to herself. A distant wind groans through the warehouse's skeleton, carrying with it the weight of forgotten labor and unanswered questions, setting the stage for a descent into echoes that never truly die. Amira steps out, her boots crunching gravel as she surveys the rusted carcass of the textile plant. Every window yawns like an open wound in the building's facade, the broken glass glinting in the moonlight. Behind her, 3 companions: Jordan, the skeptic; May, the intuitive photographer; and Lucas, the eager documentarian, exchange nervous glances. Their flashlights bob through the darkness, catching glimpses of ominous shadows that could be tricks of light or desperate appeals for attention from unseen presences. A single word hangs between them, unspoken but understood: discovery. The group presses forward, flashlights ushering them into a corridor of peeling paint and warped metal doors. Every footstep echoes as if amplified by unseen walls, and the temperature slips colder with each passing moment. Amira's recorder picks up faint hums, almost musical in quality, beneath the drone of old machinery. She pauses at a scorched door, marked with half-faded stenciled letters. Office. The air inside tastes of ash and dried textiles, as though the building still holds its final breath from decades past. Their laughter dissolves when May's camera clicks, revealing a corridor that was once empty, but now seems densely populated by silhouettes at its far end. The shapes shift and retreat in perfect synchrony, refusing to be caught on film. Lucas's voice falters as he asks if they should turn back, but Amira's gaze is already fixed on a small red light, blinking on and off behind a wall panel. A reel continues to spin, as if waiting for someone brave or foolish enough to bear witness to its lament. They pry open the panel to expose a row of Frog's reel-to-reel recorders with melted plastic casings, their wires coiled like sinuous, stranded limbs. One machine still runs, the tape inside whispering too faintly to discern words. Amira slips on a pair of padded gloves and gently removes the recorder, setting it on a dusty crate. Static flares through the old speaker. Then a woman's voice begins, trembling and urgent. "Do not follow the voices. They will break you." The moment the message ends, the door behind them slams shut with a crack that rattles the rafters. Flashlights bounce wildly in a storm of panic. Jordan swears he heard someone breathing close to his ear, but when he spins, there is no one there. Their shared jokes vanish, replaced by a sticky tension that tightens around their lungs. Amira's pulse thrums in her ears like a warning. Yet she presses record on her device, determined to unravel whatever lies buried beneath decades of decay and denial. As they navigate deeper into the labyrinth of corridors, voices begin to echo soft murmurs that coil around their ankles and tug them off balance. At first, the sounds seem distant, like distant conversations drifting through time. But then May stops abruptly, hand to her ear, tears welling in her eyes. "That's my mother," she whispers, voice cracking. She's telling me I shouldn't be here. Every member of the group freezes, confronting the impossible. An intimate voice, in a place untouched by their pasts, calling them forward. The warehouse's innards stretch on like a wounded beast, corridors diverging and looping back in impossible angles. Somewhere beyond a stack of collapsed shelving, Amira hears her sister's laughter, bright, youthful, achingly familiar. She chases the sound, recorder held aloft, until she stumbles into a cavernous room lined with charred beams and twisted metal. Flickers of yellow light dance in the murk, where a forgotten projector casts half-glimpsed images of workers at looms, their faces frozen in mid-laughter. And beneath the flicker, a heartbeat thumps, echoing through the hollow space. Lucas, scanning the walls with his flashlight, discovers a series of scrawled numbers and letters. Memory 7. Confession. Beneath it, a hunched-over drawing of a figure pressing palms against a smoky window. He shivers at how perfectly the sketch mirrors the remnants of the nearby office's shattered window panes. Amira rewinds the tape to listen again, her face illuminated by the recorder's soft glow. The voice returns, weak but insistent pleading for release from pain and secrecy. Each word vibrates with shame, hinting at truths that threaten to unravel everything they thought they knew. Jordan's skepticism falters as the recorder picks up unseen footsteps circling the room, a hollow dragging that can only belong to something with weight and purpose. The air grows thick with dampness, and condensation beads on their jackets as though the very atmosphere weeps. May crouches beside Amira, running a gloved finger along fresh footprints in a dust layer too old to host new impressions, impossible prints that vanish as soon as they appear. A low, resonant humming begins beneath the tape hiss, forcing them to cover their ears. But the sound seems to seep through the walls, tugging at the frayed edges of their sanity. Pushing onward, they find themselves at the threshold of what once served as the main production floor. Looms and spools of thread lie in ruin, and broken machinery juts from the floor like the ribs of a drowned leviathan. The silence here is cavernous, filled only by the distant hum of the tapes and the faint drip of water from an overhead pipe. Amira jogs a fingertip along a rusted control panel until a faint click answers, and the gears groan to life with a reluctant whir. Lights overhead sputter, breathing to life in intermittent flashes that throw the room into jittery relief. In each pulse of light, they glimpse figures moving between the machine's workers in stiff overalls, faces distorted by horror, reaching for exits that never open. The photograph burns with static stillness, and when the lights flicker back off, a single loom begins to churn on its own. The rhythmic clatter echoes like a heartbeat, calling them closer even as dread coils tight in their chests. "This isn't just haunting," Lucas whispers, voice tight. "It's confinement. We're inside their memories." Amira's recorder picks up the soft rustle of fabric and the distant clink of metal, perfectly preserved by the walls of this place. She rewinds the tape, hoping to catch fragments they missed, only to hear two voices, her own and her sister's, overlapping in urgent plea. "Amira," it says, "you know what must be done." The directive cuts through the hysteria, anchoring her attention even as the world threatens to tilt off its axis. The flashlights grow dim, as if the darkness itself is consuming batteries, and Amira can feel the recorder's hum bleed into her skin. Lucas tries the exit door, but it refuses to budge, the handle cold as iron and sealed by an unseen force. A muffled thud echoes beyond the door, as though something massive shifts on the other side. Waiting, May presses a hand to the wall, feeling vibrations that resonate through her bones. The very structure of the building seems alive. A tormented organism, breathing through hollow lungs of brick and steel. Guided by the tape's remnants, they reach a sealed stairwell leading down to the basement, the archived heart of the factory's secrets. Each step they descend is met with a chorus of distant screams, half-memorized shards of terror trapped in the building's bones. Amira's pulse pounds in her throat as the recorder emits a single high-pitched tone, louder and more insistent than anything before. It pulses in tandem with the creaking stairs until the final step into the subterranean chamber feels like crossing a threshold into the unknown. The basement unfolds like a mausoleum. Rows of cold lockers line the walls, each door warped and fused by heat yet locked from within. A solitary lamp perched on a desk casts an unsteady glow over scattered diaries and ledgers, their pages charred at the edges. Amira gently lifts a leather-bound journal, its cover cracked with age, and flips to a page stained by tears and sweat. The handwriting inside stutters with panic, confessing to cover-ups, forced overtime, and a fire they could not control, an inferno born not of flame, but of desperation and overlooked warning signs. Beneath the journal, Amira finds a final tape, labeled simply Memory, 13, Justice. Her hands shake as she places it in the recorder and presses play. Silence unfurls first, then the voice emerges, steady, unwavering, as if bearing witness from beyond the decay. They silenced us, it intones. But you will not. A trembling power shifts in the air, and the walls begin to hum in resonance, like a choir of restless souls finding their chorus after decades of solitude. The building quakes, and every shuttered window rattles in complicit applause. The humming swells into a cacophony of voices, hundreds of tormented whispers layered atop one another, each replaying a fragment of sorrow and injustice. Amira staggers, recorder pressed to her ear as the voices name names, describe injuries hidden from public record, and plead for recognition. May kneels beside her, tears streaming as she records footage of swirling motes of dust, each particle seeming to carry a glimmer of personal history. The warehouse becomes a vessel of collective memory, compelled to share its darkest truths with the living. Lucas shouts that the hall behind them is collapsing, and they sprint back toward the stairwell as brick and metal grind together in protest. Amira's recorder cracks with every tremor, but she refuses to stop recording. Her sister's voice calls to her again, clearer now, triumphant in tone. "Set us free," it says. The phrase echoes, bouncing off walls and floors, until it becomes a physical force, pushing them upward, guiding them toward the faintest sliver of moonlit exit. Emerging into the chill night, they find the warehouse's doors battered open by their own efforts, the hinges torn from decades of rust. The dying hum of voices trails behind them as the group spills into the overgrown yard, gasping for air that tastes impossibly fresh. Amira presses stop on her recorder and lifts it to her lips. "It's done," she murmurs, though her voice trembles with the gravity of what they've unleashed and what may follow. Dawn's pale light creeps over the horizon as they collapse by the van, exhaustion and relief warring on their faces. May reviews her footage, hands still shaking at the thought of what she captured in the faint outlines of figures in every frame. Not malevolent, but mournful, desperate for acknowledgement. Lucas thumbs through the tapes, each one now bearing a new label. Testimonies of suffering, recorded for justice rather than sensationalism. Together, they share a tentative smile, united by survival and purpose. In the days that follow, Amira pores over the recordings and journals, crafting a narrative that will expose the factory's negligence. Each transcript she types reverberates with the weight of unspoken sorrow, lending a voice to those who never had one. She knows that once these stories reach the light of day, there may be backlash from corporations, from those who prefer secrets buried. Yet she also feels a fierce determination burn in her chest, tempered by the recorder's persistent hum and her sister's urging moments ago. As the news cycle turns towards scandal, the warehouse itself begins to crack apart. Walls collapsing inward like a dying beast, surrendering to gravity. Officials declare the building unstable, forbidding anyone from entering, but rumors persist of faint laughter and ghostly conversations drifting from beyond barricades at night. Urban explorers speak in hushed tones about hearing voices they recognize, and some even claim that their own memories have been imprinted on the old reels. Amira stands outside the fence perimeter one evening, recorder in hand but silent, as if waiting for an invitation. The wind carries the faintest whisper of her sister's voice, comforting and real. A reminder of why she chose this path. She presses play on an unlabeled tape, and her sister's words fill the air. You have our story now. Live for more than answers. The message is simple, yet it shifts something deep within Amira, reminding her that justice is only the beginning of healing. The documentary premiere approaches, and a hush settles over the screening room as the lights dim. Amira watches faces in the crowd, strangers bound by a collective need to witness truth. May's footage flickers on the screen, revealing spectral hands pressed to glass and flickers of shadow passing behind broken windows. Lucas's voice narrates the timeline, guiding viewers through each chilling testament. And beneath it all, the survivor's final words, recorded decades ago, echo with renewed clarity. Viewers shift in their seats as the crescendo of voices rises, each confession and plea laid bare. Jordan holds his breath, recalling every step inside the warehouse, every moment when the walls seemed to breathe beneath his fingers. The audience responds with a reverent silence, as though the building's memories have been resurrected through their shared witness. Amira's heart pounds, with a mixture of triumph and sorrow as the credits roll, leaving the room suspended in the aftermath of revelation. In the days after the premiere, emails flood in, some offering support, others questioning the veracity of events. But many carry heartfelt apologies from descendants of former factory managers and pledges to erect a memorial where the warehouse once stood. Amira reads each message carefully, aware that healing can be messy, but resolute that truths once hidden must be honored. The survivors' journals, donated to a local archive, become touchstones for future generations seeking to understand the cost of silence. One crisp morning, Amira returns to the empty lot where the warehouse once crowned the horizon. She places her recorder on a low stone plinth, now engraved with names workers who never made it home. The wind brushes across the metal plaque, carrying with it the softest hint of melody, as though each name hums in gratitude. Amira closes her eyes, letting the echo fill her chest. A chorus of voices finally at rest after decades of waiting. Lucas greets her at the edge of the memorial, camera in hand, but unused for once. He simply stands beside her, sharing a quiet moment of reverence. May arrives clutching a framed photograph file, still from her footage, showing a worker's silhouette at a loom. Arms outstretched, as if reaching for freedom. She smiles through tears, as though the person in the image stands beside them in spirit. Together, they bear witness to a story that transcends fear, forging an understanding that memory, once freed, can never be caged again. Though the warehouse is gone, its heartbeat endures in the tapes, preserved by Amira and her friends. They have become more than recordings. They are vessels of empathy. Each hum and whisper a call to remember the humanity lost behind steel and concrete. Amira often revisits the reels, adjusting levels, isolating voices, so that future listeners might hear the clarity within the static. Each rewind is an act of devotion, reaffirming her belief that stories, once set free, can alter the course of collective memory. Late nights find her in a small studio, walls lined with spools of reel-to-reel tapes that bear cryptic labels and faded ink. She listens to the survivor's final tape over and over, tracing the vibrations that shape the echo's existence. In the quiet hum of the playback, she discerns a pattern, a melody of lamentation woven through static, that beckons her to listen deeper. It is a song of justice, of remembrance, a requiem for those silenced by time and negligence. In the years that follow, Amira collaborates with historians and sound archivists, ensuring the tapes are digitized and made accessible to scholars and the public. The project grows beyond the documentary, inspiring academic papers, installations, and even a traveling exhibit where visitors can step into reconstructed fragments of the factory's memory. Each new audience brings fresh reactions, gasps, tears, silent reflection affirming that the echo's voice still resonates long after the building's bones have crumbled. One autumn evening, Amira receives a letter postmarked from a small Midwestern town. Inside is a faded photograph of her sister smiling at a carnival long ago. An image Amira had never seen before. The note on the back reads, "She's where she needs to be." Amira's breath catches as she realizes that the sister who urged her forward from beyond the grave has also found her own peace. The photograph becomes a cherished artifact, a final gift from a voice that guided her through darkness. Standing at a podium at a memorial service for industrial accident victims, Amira holds the photograph aloft, her voice steady as she addresses a crowd that includes descendants, activists, and former co-workers. She speaks not of vengeance, but of care for each other, for the stories that shape us, for the fragile boundaries between remembrance and oblivion. The audience listens in reverent hush, the photograph projected behind her, its smile a beacon of hope amid the weight of history. As dusk falls over the memorial garden, lanterns are lit along winding paths that spell out fragments of the survivors' words in glowing script. Visitors wander through the softly illuminated trails, headphones pressed to ears, listening to curated excerpts from the tapes. Children pause to trace their fingers over engraved names. Elders bow their heads as voices rise from hidden speakers beneath stone benches. In this living canvas of memory and presence, the past and present merge in a shared moment of contemplation. Amira retreats afterward to the quiet studio she has made her sanctuary. The reels rest in neat rows, each labeled not with suffering, but with survival. She places the photograph of her sister on a shelf beside her recorder and presses play on one final tape she has yet to open. As the muffled static resolves into a familiar lament, Amira closes her eyes, ready to receive whatever message remains, knowing that endings are merely doorways to new beginnings. The tape crackles, and the survivor's voice, soft-layered, triumphant whispers, "Remember us well." Beneath it, the faintest strains of a lullaby drift through the hiss, weaving around the words like a protective embrace. Amira inhales deeply, letting the resonance fill her heart. She lifts the recorder in both hands, as if offering it up to the world, aware that this final message is less a conclusion than an invitation for others to find and share their own echoes. Months later, Amira walks through a modern museum gallery where visitors pass enclosures of relics from the warehouse charred reels, fragments of metal, faded photographs, each captioned with contextual histories gleaned from her work. She overhears a young woman asking her guide about the tapes, her voice tinted with awe. The guide smiles and replies that those who listen swear they hear more than voices. They hear a call to action, to bear witness, to protect the vulnerable in every generation. Outside the gallery, the city hums with its usual rhythm, indifferent to the silent stories carried in cardboard boxes and labeled spools. Yet every so often, Amira catches a glance. A person closing their eyes, pressing a phone speaker to their ear, tears glinting in the light. These moments affirm for her that the echo lives not in darkness, but in every heart moved by remembrance and empathy. The warehouse may vanish, but its spirit endures in every listener who dares to hear its song. On a quiet night, Amira stands once more at the memorial plinth beneath a sky blanketed in stars. She places her hand on the cool metal, where names shimmer in soft moonlight. From her pocket, she retrieves the photograph of her sister and lays it gently beside the recorder. Then, with a steady breath, she walks away, trusting that those voices will continue to guide countless others through the darkness, transforming whispers in concrete into an everlasting chorus of remembrance.